The moment I saw Eliza walk into our high school reunion with Richard Thornton, my billionaire boss, on her arm, I felt my world collapse. 10 years of carefully rebuilding my life after our divorce shattered in an instant. What happened next would change everything, not just for me, but for our daughter too. If you've ever felt the sting of betrayal or wondered if second chances are real, this story might just give you hope. Like and subscribe if you've ever had to pick yourself up after life knocked you down, because trust me, what happens next is something you won't want to miss. My name is Daniel Cooper, and for the past 5 years, I've been the senior project manager at Thornton Enterprises, one of the largest tech companies in the country. But that's not where my story begins. It starts with Eliza, my high school sweetheart. We were the couple everyone thought would make it, voted most likely to live happily ever after, in our senior yearbook. We married young, right after college, and had our daughter, Sophie, when we were both 24. The early years were beautiful. We lived in a small apartment, both working entry-level jobs, taking turns caring for Sophie. I can still remember those nights when we'd sit on our second-hand couch after Sophie was asleep, dreaming about our future together. One day, Eliza would say, her eyes bright with ambition, "We'll have it all. The house, the careers, everything." I believed her. I believed in us. But life has a way of testing the promises we make when we're young. When Sophie was 3, Eliza got an opportunity to join a prestigious marketing firm. The job meant longer hours, but the pay was better, and we agreed it was worth it. I picked up more of the childcare responsibilities, often working from home to be there for Sophie. "It's just temporary," Eliza assured me. "Once I establish myself, things will calm down." They never did. Instead, the distance between us grew. Eliza was rarely home before Sophie's bedtime. Our conversations became shorter, more practical. Who would take Sophie to her doctor's appointment? Did we need groceries? Was the electric bill paid? The night Eliza told me she wanted a divorce, Sophie was asleep upstairs with her favorite stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. "I've outgrown this life, Daniel," Eliza said, her voice steady, as if she'd rehearsed this speech many times. "I want more than this small house and weekend trips to the park. I need someone who matches my ambition." I remember standing there in our kitchen, the one we'd painted together when we first bought the house, feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath my feet. "What about Sophie?" I asked. Eliza's answer still haunts me. "You've always been the better parent. She'll be fine with you." Just like that, our 7-year marriage ended. Eliza moved out the following week, leaving me to explain to our 4-year-old daughter why Mommy wouldn't be living with us anymore. The divorce was quick but brutal. Eliza didn't fight for custody, but she demanded financial compensation that nearly bankrupted me. I had to sell our house, move into a small apartment, and take on freelance work in addition to my full-time job just to make ends meet. Sophie took it hard. She would sit by the window every Sunday, waiting for Eliza to pick her up for their weekly visit. Sometimes Eliza showed up. Often, she didn't. "Why doesn't Mommy want to see me?" Sophie asked once, her small voice breaking my heart. "She's very busy with work, sweetheart," I said, not knowing what else to tell her. "But she loves you very much." I wasn't sure if that was true anymore, but I couldn't bear to break my daughter's heart further. The years that followed were a blur of school drop-offs, late nights working, and trying to be both mother and father to a little girl who deserved so much more than a broken home. I dated occasionally, but nothing serious. Sophie remained my priority. Then came the job offer from Thornton Enterprises. The salary was double what I was making, with benefits that would allow me to provide Sophie with everything she needed. The catch? I'd never met the CEO, Richard Thornton. All interviews were conducted through his executive team, and rumor had it that he was a reclusive genius who rarely interacted with employees below the executive level. I took the job, of course. How could I not? It meant financial security for Sophie and me. It meant I could finally start saving for her college education. It meant we could move out of our cramped apartment into a proper house with a yard where she could play. For 5 years, I worked tirelessly at Thornton Enterprises, climbing from project coordinator to senior project manager. I saw Richard Thornton exactly twice during that time, once at the annual company meeting, where he gave a brief speech before disappearing, and once in the elevator, where he nodded politely but didn't speak. He was younger than I expected, probably around my age, with dark hair and intense eyes that seemed to evaluate everything they saw. The tabloids called him the Phantom Billionaire because he so rarely appeared in public. There were rumors about why. Some said he was disfigured, others that he was pathologically shy. The truth, as I would later learn, was much more complicated. Life settled into a comfortable routine. Sophie, now 9, was thriving in school. I had friends, a good job, and if sometimes I felt lonely in the quiet hours after Sophie went to bed, well, that was a small price to pay for the stability we'd found. Then came the invitation to my 10-year high school reunion. I almost didn't go. The thought of facing all those people, explaining my divorce, my single parenthood, it exhausted me. But my best friend, Marcus, insisted. "You can't hide forever, Dan," he said. "Besides, don't you want to show everyone how well you're doing despite everything?" I did, I realized. I wanted to walk in there with my head held high, to show that Daniel Cooper hadn't been defeated by divorce or the challenges of single parenthood. So I hired Sophie's favorite babysitter, put on my best suit, the one I saved for important client meetings, and drove to the hotel where the reunion was being held. The ballroom was decorated with our school colors, blue and silver streamers hanging from the ceiling, tables adorned with photographs from our senior year. I recognized faces I hadn't seen in a decade, some changed by time, others eerily the same. Marcus found me by the bar, where I was nursing a club soda. "You came," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "And looking sharp, too." We fell into easy conversation, catching up on his life. He was married now, with twins, and reminiscing about our high school days. For a while, I forgot my nervousness, enjoying the simple pleasure of talking with an old friend. Then the room seemed to shift, a collective intake of breath drawing my attention to the entrance. Eliza had arrived. She was stunning, of course. She'd always been beautiful, but now she radiated the polished glamour that comes with wealth and success. Her dark hair was styled in an elegant updo, her dress clearly designer, diamonds glittering at her throat and ears. But it wasn't her appearance that caused my heart to stutter. It was the man beside her, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. Richard Thornton. My boss. The billionaire CEO who signed my paychecks. "Is that," Marcus began. "Yes," I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "That's my ex-wife. With my boss." Marcus let out a low whistle. "Did you know they were together?" I shook my head, unable to form words. How could I have known? Eliza and I barely spoke except about Sophie, and Richard Thornton was practically a stranger to me despite 5 years of employment at his company. I watched as they moved through the room, Eliza introducing Richard to our former classmates, her laugh carrying across the space. She hadn't noticed me yet, and I desperately wanted to keep it that way. Maybe I could slip out before Daniel. Too late. Eliza was standing before me, her smile perfect, her eyes assessing. Richard stood slightly behind her, his expression unreadable. "Eliza," I managed. "What a surprise." "Is it?" She tilted her head. "I thought everyone from our class was invited." I gestured vaguely toward Richard. "I didn't know you two were dating?" Eliza's smile widened. 6 months now. Richard and I met at a charity gala. Imagine my surprise when he mentioned he owned Thornton Enterprises. I told him my ex-husband worked there, but I had no idea you'd risen so far in the company. The way she said it made it clear she thought I hadn't risen far enough. Richard stepped forward then, extending his hand. "Mr. Cooper. Your work on the Nexus project was exceptional." I shook his hand automatically, surprised he knew about my contributions to the company's latest software development. "Thank you, sir. Please, call me Richard. We're not in the office now." There was something in his eyes I couldn't quite read, curiosity, perhaps, or evaluation. I wondered what Eliza had told him about me, about our marriage, about why it ended. "How's Sophie?" Eliza asked, her tone suggesting she was fulfilling an obligation rather than expressing genuine interest. "She's good. 4th grade now. Straight A's." I couldn't help the pride that crept into my voice. "She misses you." A flicker of something, guilt? Regret, crossed Eliza's face before her social mask slipped back into place. "I've been meaning to call her. Work has been so demanding lately." "It always is," I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Richard's gaze sharpened, moving between Eliza and me with new interest. "Well," Eliza said brightly, clearly eager to move on, "we should circulate. So many people to catch up with." "Of course," I said. "Enjoy your evening." They moved away, Eliza's hand now tucked into the crook of Richard's arm. I watched them go, a hollow feeling expanding in my chest. "You okay?" Marcus asked quietly. "Fine," I lied. "Just surprised." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I made small talk with former classmates, accepted condolences from those who knew about my divorce, deflected questions about my current relationship status. All the while, I was acutely aware of Eliza and Richard across the room, the center of attention, the power couple everyone wanted to speak with. I was preparing to leave, having decided I'd fulfilled my social obligation, when Jessica Chen, our former class president, took to the small stage set up at one end of the ballroom. "Before we wrap up this wonderful evening," she said into the microphone, "we thought it would be fun to recognize some achievements from the past decade. Sort of like superlatives, but for grown-ups." There was appreciative laughter from the crowd. I edged toward the exit, not particularly interested in who had traveled the furthest or had the most children or made the most money. "Our first award," Jessica continued, "is for Most Surprising Career Change. And the winner is Eliza Morgan, who went from marketing assistant to chief marketing officer at Thornton Enterprises in just 6 months." The room erupted in applause as Eliza made her way to the stage, accepting a small trophy with a gracious smile. I froze halfway to the door. Chief Marketing Officer? At Thornton Enterprises? My company? How had I not known this? Granted, the marketing department was in a different building, and my projects rarely intersected with their work, but still, this was major news that should have been announced company-wide. Unless it hadn't happened yet. Unless this was new information that Eliza was sharing prematurely. I watched as she took the microphone, her smile dazzling. "Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be joining the executive team at Thornton Enterprises. And I have to give special thanks to Richard, who recognized my potential and wasn't afraid to fast-track my career." She blew a kiss toward Richard, who raised his glass in acknowledgement. The crowd ate it up, murmuring appreciatively at this display of romance and professional success combined. I felt sick. Not just because Eliza would now effectively be several levels above me in the company hierarchy, but because of what she'd said, wasn't afraid to fast-track my career. The implication was clear, that I had held her back, that I hadn't supported her ambitions during our marriage. It was a narrative she'd been crafting since our divorce, I realized. Poor Eliza, tied down by her unambitious husband, finally free to pursue the success she deserved. Never mind that I'd supported her career moves, taken on more childcare responsibilities, encouraged her every step of the way. Never mind that she'd abandoned our daughter. I couldn't listen to any more. I slipped out the side door into the cool night air, leaning against the wall of the hotel, trying to steady my breathing. What would this mean for my job? Would Eliza use her new position to make my life difficult? Would I need to start looking for new employment? The thought made my stomach clench. The job at Thornton Enterprises had been a lifeline for Sophie and me. Starting over would mean financial instability, possibly moving, disrupting Sophie's school and friendships. Mr. Cooper. I straightened quickly, pushing away from the wall. Richard Thornton stood a few feet away, his expression thoughtful. Mr. Thornton, Richard, I was just getting some air. He nodded, moving to stand beside me, both of us now looking out at the parking lot. I imagine tonight has been uncomfortable for you. That was an understatement. It was unexpected, I said carefully. I should have told you about Eliza's appointment before tonight. That was an oversight on my part. So it was true. Eliza really was going to be CMO. Congratulations on your relationship, I said, the words tasting bitter. Eliza is very determined when she wants something. Richard turned to look at me directly. Yes, she is. It's one of the qualities that attracted me to her initially. I didn't know what to say to that. I couldn't very well warn my boss that my ex-wife had a history of discarding people when they no longer served her ambitions. She told me about your marriage, Richard continued. Her version, of course. I'm sure she did. I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. She said you were resistant to her career advancement. That you preferred she stay home with your daughter rather than pursue professional opportunities. I laughed, a short, harsh sound. Is that what she told you? I worked from home 3 days a week so she could take that job at Morgan & Price. I handled most of Sophie's childcare, doctor's appointments, school events. I supported every career move she wanted to make. Richard's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. And yet she left. She left because I wasn't ambitious enough for her. Because I was content with our life, our house, our daughter, our community. Eliza wanted more. She wanted status, wealth, recognition. I shook my head. She wanted the life you can give her. And your daughter? Sophie, is it? What about her? Eliza rarely mentions her. When she does, it's perfunctory. The pain of that observation was sharp. Eliza sees Sophie once a month, if we're lucky. Usually for a few hours at a restaurant or mall. She's missed birthdays, school plays, parent-teacher conferences. She calls maybe once a week, and those calls get shorter every time. I hadn't meant to say so much, especially not to my boss, but the words had poured out of me, fueled by years of watching my daughter's disappointment when her mother canceled plans or forgot important events. Richard was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Thank you for your honesty, Mr. Cooper. It's illuminating." Before I could respond, the door opened, and Eliza stepped out, her smile faltering slightly when she saw us together. "There you are," she said to Richard. "I was wondering where you'd disappeared to." "Just getting some air and chatting with Daniel," Richard said smoothly. "Congratulations again on your award." Eliza beamed, slipping her arm through his. "Thank you, darling. Are you ready to go? I thought we might stop for a nightcap at that little bar you like." Richard nodded. "Of course. Mr. Cooper, I'll see you at the office on Monday." "Yes, sir," I said automatically. Eliza didn't even say goodbye, just turned and led Richard back inside, leaving me alone in the dark with the ruins of my evening and the uncertain future of my career. The drive home was a blur. I paid the babysitter, checked on Sophie, sleeping peacefully, unaware of how her world might soon be upended again, and sat in my darkened living room, trying to process everything that had happened. By morning, I had a plan. I would update my resume, start quietly looking for new positions. I'd save as much as possible in